We are here to welcome artist YehRim Lee and hear her talk about her work, which is upstairs in the front gallery. The exhibition is called Dopamine Dressing, and I know that afterwards you can go and take a look at it, and if you haven't, if you can't do that, I'd really just encourage you to see it. The opportunity to show new work by emerging and influential artists, and then to have an artist come and talk to us about that work is really, really important. And we think of it here at UMMA as a critical part of our mission, a big part of why we're here. It's especially powerful, of course, when you can actually see the work in person and hear the artist in person. All of which is to say that we're all really lucky here tonight to be able to listen and learn from YehRim Lee. Support for the exhibition was provided by the William C. Weiss Endowment for Ceramic Arts and the University of Michigan Office of the Provost, the NAM Center for Korean Studies, the Department of the History of Art, and the Department of Asian Languages and Cultures. This talk, and YehRim Lee's residency at the University of Michigan, is also supported by the NAM Center for Korean Studies, the CEW Plus Francis and Sidney Lewis Visiting Leaders Fund, and the Stamp School of Art and Design's Roman J. Witt Residency Fund. Without the generosity of these partners, it wouldn't be possible to bring in such an extraordinary breadth of work by YehRim and to host her on campus. So we're incredibly grateful to our partners. YehRim Lee's artist residency was also made possible through a collaboration with Professor Susan Crowell, who is faculty at Stamps and at the Residential College. So over the last week, YehRim has been working really closely with ceramic students, and I'm hoping that some of them are in the audience tonight at Stamps and at the Residential College. And she's been meeting with all kinds of people, educators and faculty and staff, and all of us at the museum as well. So tonight, what you'll hear is a brief introduction of YehRim Lee and her exhibition by Natsuo Ayobe, UMMA's curator of Asian art and the curator of Dopamine Dressing. And then following that, we'll hear from YehRim herself, and then there'll be an opportunity for questions and answers with all of you. There are two mics, or I guess there will be, on either side of the stage. So what we'll do, which is kind of the common practice at these Stamps talks, is ask folks to line up and ask questions there. And then after all of that, there'll be a reception upstairs and a chance to see the galleries, and we really invite all of you to join us in that. So I'm going to hand the mic over to Natsuo Ayobe, curator of Asian art, who will then introduce YehRim Lee.
Good evening. I'm so happy to see all of you here. And welcome to the special artist talk by YehRim Lee. YehRim Lee grew up in Jeonju, Korea, and now lives and works in Joshua Tree in California. She studied ceramics at Korea National University of Cultural Heritage, and later continued her studies of ceramic art at the California State University, Long Beach. In 2017, she earned her MFA in ceramic art at Alfred University. Between 2017 and 2022, YehRim participated in many residency programs, including at the University of Georgia, the University of the Arts and the Clay Studio in Philadelphia, and Archie Bray Foundation in Helena, Montana. Her future projects include a residency at the California State University in Long Beach in summer, and a show in the Jeonju Craft Biennial in September this year, and it will be her homecoming. I'm sure her parents will be very proud. YehRim's work explores the contemporary human condition using decorative clay techniques acquired through traditional training. She grew up in a family that made Korean onggi ware, an iron-glazed brown pottery used for storing and fermenting food. She also studied ceramic making in Jingdezhen, China, that produced much of the high-quality blue and white ware for global trade since the 16th century. Her current show, Dopamine Dressing, is her first solo show in a US museum. In the show, she positions colorful clay and metal sculptures on a complex structure of her own design to create a joyful, immersive environment while playing with notions of decadence. If you haven't experienced yet, please join us later after the talk and exhibition, and you can literally feel your dopamine surging surrounded by the colors. In today's talk titled Cross-Continental Flux, she will discuss her practice and path as an artist walking across borders. Please welcome YehRim Lee.
Thanks for the introductions. I'm so happy to be here. Before I begin, I want to thank UMMA for making my show happen. In particular, thanks to the show curator, Nacho Yobe, whose vision made this show happen. She and the whole UMMA staff has been wonderful to work with through the whole process. Thanks to the Wheels Collection for funding the show and their support of ceramic art. Thanks to the ceramic department, where I have been a visiting artist this week. And thanks to the organizer of Penny Stamp Speaker Series for having me. My name is YehRim Lee. I'm originally from South Korea. I'm glad to be able to share about my work with you tonight. I make abstract art, sculpture, installation, and functional furniture. My main medium is clay. I cannot separate my personal history from my work, so I will start with my history. This is me and my father. Clay is part of my personal and cultural history. As you can see from the photo, my father is a ceramic artist. I was surrounded by clay and ceramics since I was very young. So clay is the material that I have always been most comfortable with. Let me talk about my father's process a little bit, since he has influenced my practice the most. In this picture, he's making a large jar called onggi. Onggi jars are traditional ceramic ware used to store fermented food like kimchi or soy sauce. Before the refrigerator, these jars were stored underground to the temperature control. And this pot was disappearing in Korean culture because of technology. After his undergrad, my father decided to apprentice to an onggi master. Because he was drawn to the history and tradition of Korea, also drawn to the huge volume of the jars. At the bottom right, you can see very large coils. Onggi technique used thick coil to build large jars in a short time. After he learned from his apprenticeships, he developed his own work, applying traditional methods to contemporary practice. At that time, he opened his own studio, and this is where I grew up. This environment led me to go to school, focused on Korean traditional art. When I was young, I knew I was interested in art, but I didn't know I want to be an artist. And also, I didn't know which type of art I liked. So I started to study the field that I was most familiar with. Here is some of my early work I made in undergrad. My school's name was Korea University of Cultural Heritage. As you can figure out from the school's name, the school focused on Korean art and history and craft and used traditional reference a lot. These are the Buddha heads. And this is Mountains Ridge, which I inspired by Korean black and white traditional painting. At that time, I had learned the tradition and history of Korea. or this education would be really important in the future when I studied outside of Korea, because knowing yourself and your history helped me not feel lost. But by that time, as a young person, however, I really wanted to learn more about contemporary art and what is going on now. So I talked to my parents. I want to live in Seoul, which is the capital of Korea. By that time, Seoul was the biggest city I could think of. My father said Seoul was good, but why don't you dream bigger and consider going overseas? Since I didn't know about living outside of country, I decided to take my father's advice. He suggested China. That sounds great to me. So I applied to an exchange student through my school's program to China. And I want to go to the city and get away from clay and for a moment. But my school sent me to Jingdezhen, China, known as porcelain capital of the world. Yeah, for at least 1,000 years, most of population of this city has made ceramics. The whole city is made of ceramics. This is the city that made the empire ceramics, like Ming and Qing dynasties. Also, much of blue and white porcelain ware was exported to Europe through the Silk Road. Many people have replicated those traditions. As you can see here, even the traffic lights are made from porcelain. You can see these large jars everywhere in Jingdezhen. All the workers who made this jar specialized in different jobs. There is the throwing workshop next to the drawing workshop, and glaze factory is next to the kiln workshops. And here is the painting specialist. And ceramics were everywhere. Even the garbage dump is filled with the pot. And this is the ceramic market. Since this was my first time living outside of my country, I felt very isolated and lonely. And it was also first my language barrier. So I was looking for comfort, and I found out that clay is my comfort zone. And this is my first series of work from my time in Jingdezhen. As you can see, there are still traditional references, but I would collage with different materials, with fibers, patterns, and Chinese painting. After China, I wanted to continue to explore my interest. I still had not studied contemporary art yet. So with that thought in mind, one day I met an American professor from California State University, Long Beach, at a ceramic biennial in Korea. I asked him how to apply to graduate school in the United States. He suggested a post-bachelor study in his program. So first, for the first couple of months, I still made the traditional reference work. I wasn't sure what else to do. One day, my professor, Tony Marsh, encouraged me to try something opposite, to add my own idea and to express myself. This idea of expressing yourself may not seem shocking to Americans, but only having a traditional education, this idea blew my mind. Still, I didn't know how to express myself, so I talked with another professor at Cal State. She shared the artists that she liked and how they influenced her practice. So I went to the library to think about what I actually liked. What I found out was that I really like color, texture, volume, and three-dimensional work. Right before I came to the United States, my father taught me the onggi technique. He says that having skill is confident to an artist. So I use those skills to express what I like. I use onggi method to build large. This is my first work titled Feminine Vessel, where I felt my own voice finally came through. When I went to graduate school at Alfred University, my sculptures continued to develop. The Feminine Vessel series used a lot of organic shapes, so I tried to start making more angles in my work. I began to explore more sculptural ideas than vessel forms. I opened the shapes more and got rid of the bottom. I experiment with sculpting glaze on the work for texture, and I began to explore the idea of too muchness and overabundance. This is detail shot. My work became more architectural. I used more angles and incision because I like the idea of constructed things. My work still grew organically with human-made touch. Abstraction show my intuition well. What I found out in this practice is that I don't need to belong anywhere. I can make the work that I dreamed of in Korea because my interest does not only belong to one idea. I always dream of expression and freedom. With my traditional material clay, I really enjoyed finding myself. This piece is in the Dopamine Dressing show. These are some process shots. This is a large-scale sculpture I made at Archibray Residency. This is the same idea of a constructed angle and incision on the large scale. Now I will share my technical process here. Here are some studio shots. When I make work, I don't sketch. I build intuitively. Making work is like meditation for me. I feel very comfortable in the studio, let my hands lead. I want to show how I glaze and bring textures into my work. As you can see, I create the complicated folding foam, then bisque fire. After bisque fire, I fire multiple times. This is the first fire after the bisque. This creates the base color. I fire at high temperature to create more vitrified feeling, a more traditional feeling of ceramics. Next, I use glaze to add texture. The glaze I use for texture has a clay consistency, so I can sculpt on the pieces. I developed this glaze when I was in graduate school. This is the glaze you can see on my pieces that look like frosting. I fire once, then refire again, applying more glaze layers until the piece has an excessive feeling. And these are getting closer to finish, but not yet. Still, they need one more fire. Many people ask me the question of when I know when to stop, but it is all an immediate decision. After the glaze fires, I sometimes fire low fire to add luster, which gives the work variety of sheens. And here is the final product. And hang on the wall. This is finished wall piece. So in terms of theme, the wet foams and dripping surface embody revenous consumption. appetite for food, visual beauty, and physical pleasure. In my glaze and complex form, I explore appetite and gluttony. I'm interested in excessive nature and repetition of late stage of capitalism. This is 3 Heart Trouble in the Dopamine Dressing show. And this is the process of 3 Heart Trouble. As you can see the left photo, this piece was originally taller, but it actually collapsed in the kiln, folding under its own weight, which I thought it was just perfect for my theme. So another type of work I'm interested in are installations. I use many different materials. In this section, I want to show how each material developed into installations. After school, I didn't feel like my journey in the United States was over yet. So I decided to apply for an artist visa. To get an artist visa, it is important to be in as many shows as possible. But ceramics are large and heavy, and all I had was a hatchback car. So in order to make art that at the scale I wanted, I had to experiment with new materials and processes. I like creating ceramic sculpture, but after a while, it was a problem because I was moving around so much. I moved from the West Coast to the East Coast to the South because of residencies and visa issue. Having large work was always a problem with storage and transportation. This nomadic life led to new ideas. I still wanted to use clay and fill large spaces. One strategy was to build the installation at the site. Using on-fire clay, I can build large directly in the space. These are the temporary installation. At the end of the show, they can simply be broken and thrown away. And I use fiber as structure and build the low clay on the fiber. They are suspended in the air, and sometimes the parts collapse, but the aging and decay is part of the installation's temporality. Painting on paper is also great for its lightweight and its ability to bring in color. But quickly I realized that I like three-dimensional works. So I start to cut the papers and recreate them with the cutout method. This brings in more color and dimensions in the space. And I laser cut papers so it can create large quantities with a precise and delicate finish. Here is a combined idea using fiber as a structure and raw clay as texture and painting for color. This is very opposite theme of my ceramic sculpture, showing the ephemeral, the delicate, and the temporally bound. My work is about an accumulation of reference points which start more diverse and varied conversation. Materials will be more prominent in one work or another depending on my interaction with their characteristic, form, and space. This is a part of installation. Here you can see opposite idea combined. Hand building clay coils with razor cut paper floating in the space together. These two opposite ideas become one hybrid idea, like this. Here I razor cut porcelain to produce the pattern and detail. Yeah, so as you can see here, many of my ideas come from building bridges between opposites. Here are the samples of laser cutting ceramics. And I also work in fibers. Fiber has its own benefit. It provides structural integrity for hanging, weaving, and connecting components together. I have manipulated this material to loop through, tie around, and weave between the negative space of the objects that are made of clay and paper. Fiber allow me to weave, sew, and not to separate material together for an abstract form. This joining of materials become a perfect metaphor for my cultural experience. At times, my experience between East and West is joined by a messy knot or stitches. Here is my piece, Fibrous, which I was created during the first 4 months of pandemic when I was quarantined in my rooftop apartment and had a large empty physical and temporal space to fill. The fibers are built symbolically on the broken picture frames and hand-woven in a time-consuming fashion. It is also a response to jogakbo, Korean patchwork. This was a tradition from Joseon Dynasty. The idea behind the patchwork was symbolic of times of scarcity and strife when women held the society together by patching together materials for survival. It speaks to ingenuity and fortitude of women in Korean culture. Plastic is another lightweight material with a different feel. I draw a pattern and collage in Photoshop and print it on plastic film. As you can see, I use a lot of handmade process and also digital process. They are mixed well in my work. This is a printed pattern on the acetate film, folded in 3 dimensions. You can also see here that I am interested in light and shadow become part of the work. The shadow is the most light thing I don't need to carry around. And here is all the material combined to become an installation. I develop its material separately, and all this material become one in space. Plastic is also thematic for me. This piece was titled Shopping Spree, where I imagined the excessive packaging exploding out of object into the environment. And this is another view. Here is a combination of laser cut and plastic working together. Paper and plastic is also a good connection between ceramic sculptures. Here they are all connected in one space as an installation. In 2019, I married. My life in the United States became more stable and I felt more grounded. So I started to think more about functional object and living space. One of my first experiments with furniture came from a project I did at the Clay Studio Residency in Philadelphia. This is a collaboration with the Philadelphia Museum of Art. In this project, resident artists chose a piece from the PMA collection and responded to in their own work. The piece I chose was a 19th century Chinese garden stool. As you can see in right photo, there is a lot of painting and pattern on the garden stool. Each symbol has meaning. Each symbol and pattern has meaning. For example, magpie means longevity. Peony flower is abundance. Pomegranate means fertility. I titled my work Money Chair because the garden stool has an incision of the coin, which means wealth. My stool plays off that iconography, but also reflect a more modern sense of overabundance with dripping glaze and bright color, especially green, the American color of wealth. I developed more furniture pieces that look like my sculpture, cut it in half with a flat top. So there is a conversation between the sculpture and functioner. Here is after firing with a glass top for a coffee table. And this is the lamp. And this is a moonflower vase. And I used some colored glass to play with the color of the sculpture. And the moonflower vase hold the dry flowers. Here is a series of terracotta side table that I completed recently. It was a collaboration with the designer Kelly Wersler in Los Angeles. They use earthy tone that fit in more with contemporary interior in California. This project helped me to think more about developing interior design project. Each of the pieces individual, some shorter as side table, some taller as a drinking table, and some matching wall colors. Now I would like to talk about my show Dopamine Dressing at UMMA and how this show considers the idea of solidness and space. With the opportunity of the show at UMMA, having this institutional support, I have the chance to develop materials more. The materials become more solid. This is a metal sculpture. I'm so happy I don't have to fur the material anymore. The sculpture itself has power and weight. It shows my life as more solid and stable. Here is a process of making the metal sculpture. First, I create the cardboard model like this. And the fabricator make the metal piece, and then we powder coat. Also, pedestals have become more of my installations. This is a show in my hometown of Cheongju at the Craft Museum. This was my first experience in designing pedestals and choosing wall color. At this time, I drew plan by hand and sent to the museum, like this. And for this show, Dopamine Dressing, it was a bigger space, so pedestal become even more important. So me and my friend sat together and taught ourselves how to use the SketchUp program by watching a lot of YouTube. And yeah, this program was amazing because I could choose colors. In a show like this big, you have to plan things months in advance. So this really helped me visualize the whole process. The UMMA technician Matt Casadonte made it happen to create these pedestals. Here you can see he's working with the routing machine. The pedestals were so heavy, he had to carve out space to lighten the load. And here is the space being set up. And here are the completed pedestals. And here is the installation view. For this show, curator Natsu Oyobe want to show how younger Asian artists are working in conversation with the traditional traditions reference in the gallery, so she invited me to this show. This show was the product of 2 years of making work at the Archibray Foundation during the pandemic. The title Dopamine Dressing comes from the fashion trend of dressing in bright color as a form of chromotherapy, of tricking the brain into releasing happy chemicals. I have always been interested in fashion, so this idea made me think of how art can function like fashion in this way. As you can see, I wanted the installation to be very colorful and stimulating in every way. Each piece has many layers and shapes with my characteristic sense of overabundance. I felt this exuberance was part an answer to the dark pandemic, but it also contained the theme of my former work, on exploration of consumer culture and connecting between East and West, the contemporary and the traditional. So if you haven't seen the exhibition yet, this is at the UMMA Museum. Stop by and enjoy the dopamine feeling. Thanks for hearing my journey of making this show happen. As a young artist, this is a big moment for me. Having support from the University of Michigan has been wonderful in continuing my artistic journey. Thank you. Thank you. Any question? I think this is Q&A time. Oh, yeah.
My name's Natalie, and I'm just wondering, like, seeing your process has been so great, and seeing you in the studio working has been really, really awesome. But I'm also just curious, like, what's the most rewarding part of the process for you? Is it like the making of the work or the glazing?
I think making parts is definitely my favorite part. I like color and texture. The glaze part is that I'm enjoying them much because it make my clothes dirty and yeah, things. Definitely making those repetition moment is like so meditate for me. So touching the clay part is my most comfortable part.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about like designing the pedestals and how you kind of think through like which pieces you put where and like if there's any like meaning behind that about, I know you had said something about like stability with the metal sculptures.
Yeah, I was thinking about the gallery space a lot. It's our technician, he gave me the map of the gallery. So I was thinking about like where is the window and where is the entrance. I think about the space a lot before I design the pedestal. And then if the pedestal is like, I wanted to have like more constructed angle than organic form. So it looks like more like constructive feeling. And then the positioning work is like a lot of like in the SketchUp, like switching the photos a lot. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Hi, I just want to say I love your work, and I think that everything feels like so well thought out and researched. And I was wondering if there was anything specifically that like you do in researching a project, or how your research like process has changed throughout your career.
I do a lot of material research. I always like clay's amazing material, but it was like too familiar, so I got tired of it sometimes. So whenever I start feel little tired of like this material, I start looking new materials. And I think like making work, most important thing to make work is like feel excitement. So whenever I feel I don't have like this excitement feeling anymore. I start to looking the material more. And then in terms of theme or other research, I research after the work a lot because I want the work is as much free and expressive, and I try to not like too much plan before. So yeah, in terms of theme, I research after. In terms of material, I just like try a lot with everything. Is it? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. I was wondering what made you want to go out and sort of like go to other places to present your work?
Oh, what make me?
Like, why you want to like go to other places outside Korea?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because I didn't know I will be traveling this much. But I always felt I want to express myself a lot, and Korea is the culture that have a lot of rules. So I didn't know that was like make me not express myself when I lived there. But as soon as like I went to the exchange student, I feel so much freedom and relief, and I think those feelings make me keep traveling after. So first time was more accident and also at the same time like parent advice, or I live in countryside, rural countryside, just like thinking about and dreaming about city is like the first step, but after that is like those new ideas and new freedom is make me traveling more and more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Thank you for that really great talk.
Thank you.
I also had a question about the installation, because it feels so much like it's a single vision you have, and you're really trying to get us to think about the relationships between objects, and you're trying to get us to be very specific about the height of the objects, and we can't see it in this photo, but everybody will see it when they go upstairs. There's even work on the wall.
Yeah, right.
So I just want to ask you more about what it is that you're after in sort of making a whole environment for us that is, really of your whole making, like you're painting everything the way you want it and you're positioning it the way you want it, and also whether you think of it as one work of art, like it's an entire installation, or whether you think of it as many different works of art.
Like entire making this one installation, entire process, it's like develop individual like material. It takes 2 years. It was like 2 years of research and making. So, I mean, what was the question? It was like,
Well, everything about the way you craft it, you're not leaving anything to chance in terms of how the works relate to one another and how they will relate to us, and the wall color and the positioning. So it's very different than if you said, oh, here's the work, and then Natsu got a bunch of pedestals and put them in vitrines, and then boom, 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 right? That would be a whole different experience.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you about what experience it is you want the viewer to have.
At here,
Yeah.
in UMMA. I think like installation and both dopamine dressing show, I think like the idea is the same to the audience. I want they just like enter the gallery, and then I want to have like the first reaction is like, wow, like those feeling is enough for me. I think like I want to have some like either color or either material or either like fine like delicacy, like either like the weight, like one word will be enough, but just like first impression, I want they have like surprised by the space. So yeah, it's like different. The installation and my exhibition is same and different for that way. Yeah, I want they just like overwhelmed in the space for happy chemical with dopamine dressing and here. in UMMA. So yeah, I hope that's working well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Is it answer? Is it correct answer to your question? Sometimes I'm like,
Thank you.
thank you.
I just wanted to say I really respect how you represent overconsumption through your work, and I wanted to ask how like you came to the idea of wanting to make stuff about that and how you developed that process. Like, what was your thought process behind that, I suppose?
Not having a lot of think is the answer for the question. I think like just my personality and my visual taste, love those like over. I like too much than minimalized things, but it's all the people's taste. I cannot, like if someone asks to why you like too muchness than minimalized, like you cannot explain why. You know what I mean? Like if you like dress up like this, and why don't you like dress black? I like colors. That's the answer. So I think like when I live in Korea, like we love to dress like gray and black and white, like not outstanding or not like too recognized to other people. But I think like from that time I always like why didn't I do colorful and why I cannot too much from others. So those thoughts behind make me like develop more and more and more, and which material I can use more, like which color I can use. So those like just one idea. It's developing more and more textures and everything.
So it's not necessarily like a critique, it's just more like an expression of how you feel about that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, that was an entire idea. I came to United States, like what I like, because like having, what I liked, what I can express what I liked. And sometimes it combined with like some ideas after, but original idea is like, what I like, finding out what I like.
Thank you.
Basic idea. Yeah, thank you.
I have a question about what you experienced during creation that you miss the ability to share with the person who is then viewing it. What I'm referring to is two things. Across your different pieces, they have different weights. Your fibers are very different. They move. There's a lot of the dynamics, weight, and so on. And there's also a sound difference.
Yeah, right.
You can click your finger against a piece of ceramic. You do the same thing with your fiber work. It's very different. And you as the artist can experience that. You put it on exhibit. It's do not touch.
Yeah.
And you can't get near any of that. Is that something you wish you could share, or is it okay that you're the person that is the sole person who knows that, feels that?
You mean like the audience touching the work and?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, like I'm a little afraid of installations like this for touching because they can collapse too fast. But decay and aging is part of my work. But some kind of like installation is, I'm really nervous to destroy it. But yeah, I understand like I mean, I personally, if I go to the exhibition outside of, other than my exhibition, I want to touch the work. It's the habit. Like me in the studio, I hang out with my artist friend, and we always like touching other people's work and feel other people's work, and then commenting about like, oh, this feeling, blah blah, this feeling, blah blah. So that way, I want to people can touch my work, but at the same time, it's also like museum have another rule. So I'm okay, but I want to also follow the institution's rule in space. But if you visit my studio, you can touch as much my work. I'll give you anyone permission to touch my work. I mean, like student at the UMMA, like art studio, you guys can touch my work. You're welcome, but museum, don't touch. Do not touch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Going back to the idea of dopamine dressing and wearing bright colors to feel happy, I wondered if you could tell us about any of your favorite outfits that you wear as a way of dopamine dressing.
Yeah, right. I mean, when I buy the, I don't have like specific one, but I mean like I like today's for like somewhat present looks, but like having little pattern and colors. When I buy the clothes, I always try to buy like something is in there, like either pattern, texture, color, one has to be in here. Like even the black, there has to be like some texture there. So I don't know like one specific clothes, but I think like all of my clothes is like somehow they have something in it. I mean, I love your outfit. Are you dopamine dressing tonight? Yeah, you really did a good job. Yeah, I mean, all my clothes probably because that's my choice. Some clothes not, but yeah, most of it. So thank you. Oh, here is more.
Yeah, I wanted to know about the material you chose because a lot of your pieces before this show were a lot of like mixed material, but then you went back to ceramics and metal. So I want to know like the thought process behind that. Is it like because you had more time, or what did you want to go back to ceramics, or yeah?
I missed the big.
Sorry. So you branched out into like using string and like paper. Like you talked a lot about that, but with this show, it's more ceramic and metal work. Is there a reason behind that?
Yeah, I think like right now is, for me, it's most grounded. Like it's been 10 years. I came to United States. I has been making ceramic for 10 years in this country, but I didn't have like one place to show all my work together. And this is my first museum show. This is like year 10, which is like most stable for me. So I wanted to, and then this is great opportunity. So I wanted to ambitious about the weight and fragility because it's museum show.
Yeah, of course.
So thank you.
I'd like to follow up on that question and also Tina's question about what you want people to see or feel when they go into the exhibit. Are your exhibits site-specific? In other words, when this exhibit closes, could you see it being installed in another institution?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry about, yeah, I think I just get the question, but I immediately forget, so okay.
Are the installations site-specific? In other words, some artists would design an installation for the gallery upstairs, and it really wouldn't be something they see being taken down and then being installed at another institution. Do you see your art as this exhibit as site-specific in that sense, or would you see it being able to be taken down and then put up at another institution in the future?
I think like every space has different power and energy. So even this work going to another institution, I'm open to that idea. And by the space, I can change the pedestal color or wall color, but work and then like rearrange the work differently. But I think like the theme and idea and work can be same, but like I can use like different display to another institution. So
thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm wondering, what made you were so steeped in traditional, both Korean and I'm not sure in China. What made you come to such a seemingly to the extreme of so-called contemporary art? I mean, why? You've got this rich, deep
Yeah.
tradition.
I mean,
was it what your dad made? Was
Yeah.
largely functional, and you
yeah,
wanted to-
functional and also for the decoration, everything. But yeah, I studied like tradition, like entire my like until mid-20, and when I see people really like those tradition and history object and ideas, they really love those like aesthetics a lot. And what I found out was that I appreciate the tradition and history. And for example, my father went to the most contemporary art school in Korea. And then he's not from the maker's family. He went to most contemporary art school, most well-known art school, and then all his classmates make like contemporary art, and then he go back to tradition because he's drawn to those idea. So I think like it's more for me, it's like more my interest to, I like contemporary art more than, I mean, I appreciate tradition and history, but I keep curious of like what's going on right now, and those curiosity you cannot stop. Like after I like learn all the tradition and history, I appreciate, but I was curious on other things. So my parents encouraged me to study more than what I like because.
That's what I was going to ask you. What does your dad think about your work?
Yeah, he liked it. Yeah, he appreciated it because which dad don't like when daughter do something. Even I do like do this, he's like, oh, doing good job. So he was like really like supportive dad, and he's proud of like I'm using clay. Just that is enough for me. I mean, like even I draw an installation, he like I'm doing creative activity, and he appreciate like I'm doing artistic practice with clay. So yeah, like family support and my own interest make me have another interest than tradition and traditional.
Mm-hmm. You feel like you did?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
That's great.
Thank you.
So, well, thank you, YehRim. And we can continue chatting with YehRim upstairs in exhibition. So please join us for reception. Thank you for coming today. Thank you, YehRim.
Thank you.